welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today I'll be talking about something really different from what I do. I just want to share with you my work experience, and for this part, if you're ever looking for something to do and you find something and you're doubting yourself on whether to do it or not, so I hope you'll be able to listen to my experience and you can put that with what you want or what you've experienced and somehow learn something also. And before I even go ahead, if you're new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification button. Every time I post a video, you'll be notified. And thank you so much for all of you. I love you guys. So what I'll say is, like, my first employment, a cosmetic shop, and my mom is the one who searched for me the job because I didn't want to be staying at home all the time. So I told my mom to just go look for me a job or something, and she found this cosmetic one. I'll be reading my notes. I have some points on my just to remind myself. So my first one was a cosmetic. So basically we were selling beauty stuff and everything beauty. And my salary for the first employment that I got was about 3,500 to 4,000. I know it's a bit shocking, but that was it. And that was about I think 2011. Then I can't really remember if it's the end of 2010 or 2011, but around there. So that was my first ever salary that I got from that job, and I did that job for 2 years. I did it for 2 years, and the first time I went there, there was like an interview, but it was just a basic interview to just look at the posters and answer the questions that I was being asked by the employer. And I'm so sorry for the background noise. And then I got in and I started working. So for this, there was no off days basically. It was just like work from Monday to Sunday. And I had no issues with it because I needed that job to get away from home, basically, to find somewhere where I fit in and somewhere where I can be able to feel free whenever I went. So what I'll say about this job is that's something that shaped me at that time, because my employer at that time was really nice. And she taught me a lot of things, and I learned a lot of things because most of our stuff are like the air products she was getting from Angel Company and Darling Company directly. She taught me how to organize. She taught me how to do the calculations. I mean, how to balance how to make orders through the company. So I've really learned a lot. There were pro and cons in that job when it came to salary, of how small it was. But for me, I was not complaining because I was still living in my parents' house. So what I was doing sometimes was I would carry my own lunch. Sometimes I'll skip lunch. Sometimes I'll have only tea and chapati for lunch, because it was like tea was like 20 bob, chapati was like 10 or 20 also. So most of my money I'll save at that time. So I mean, that job really shaped me, because what I got from being by working there is like I really got a passion for beauty that I never knew I had. So all this passion, I think it's from back then when I started working for my first employment. But after I quitted that job, I went to somebody else who was selling by retail and used to be my customer, which was a very bad idea at first. So number one thing, I'll come to the lesson part of it. So I worked there for like a few months, and then I just couldn't take it because I felt like I didn't belong there. I didn't feel comfortable working there. So after I quitted that job, I stayed jobless for like, I think a month, and then a friend of mine called me to a club somewhere in 44. I really can't remember the name. There's a thing with me with my past. Sometimes I find it hard to really remember, especially if it's something that I really didn't like. I don't remember. It's like I have this thing in my head that just shuts it down. So I worked in the club 44 Githurai for like I think a month or two. Oh, and this one was really, really, really tough. Yeah, so serving for the first time was really scary. So I found it really hard to like be cooperative in that employment, as sometimes I really had shots, and this employment, if you ever get a shot, they cut it off your salaries, and I think my salary at that time was like 4 or 5 thousand. So it was really hard for me to try and adapt to that life, because at first I didn't even tell my mom what I was doing. I just, because I feared how she would take it, and especially how people who know her would take it if they knew I was working in a club. This being, I'm not saying it's a bad way, but my mom at that point, she is a church woman. So if your mom is that, and to make it even worse, she was a choir member. So if you imagine somebody saying that you're a choir member and your girl works in a club or something, it's just, to some people, they find it as a very sinful thing, which is not, because if you're past 18 or you're 18 and you have your identification card, you're already a grown up, so you are free to work to make your ends meet. And by this time, I'd already started living by myself. I started living with myself in my first employment. There's a video of my living alone experience, so you can go check that out on my channel also. So at this point, I was living alone. So there's no way I could have stayed home and not have a job, because I had rent to pay. So after a month or two, I just decided to quit. It was a really tough job, to be precise. I really learned a lot from that. I really learned how to deal with people, to work within people's moods and attitude. So after that, those are 3 jobs so far. First employer, she called me, then go work for her. And I went, and not in Githurai. At this time, she had another branch in town, Nairobi, at a cosmetic shop also. When I went to town, it was just a whole new experience. When you're used to working in Githurai, and then you change the environment up to town, it was just another experience. So here you have to, my salary went up to 10,000 from what she was paying me before. So it was still challenging, because I was still paying rent, and I told you my rent was 35 when I started living alone. So 3,500 minus that, and then you have to minus transport and then food. It was a really challenging stuff, but I had to manage how to do it, because sometimes I'd eat at my mom's and then go sleep. That working in a cosmetic shop in town, it was in Dubois Street, where people go now to buy beauty stuff. I've worked in that street, so I know how that street is. So at that time, I didn't know it was called Dubois. I knew it was called Dubois. So I came to find out it was called Dubois this year. After all that time, I worked at that cosmetic shop in town for 1 year, a full 1 year. So it was really experimental, because every time there were customers, every time there was, especially the peak seasons. You couldn't see me in peak seasons if you are my friend, because I had to make sure by 6 I'm on my way to town, and then sometimes I get home back at 8 p.m., which was really, really tough. It was really tiresome. Sometimes I was fatigued sometimes, but through it all, I had my lessons. I learned my lessons. I learned how to deal with people, how to work with people. So at that time, I really grew. I got some chance to be doing some accounting. So the pro of that is that the fact that I learned and I gained a lot of knowledge through it, and also meeting customers, clients, and having to learn about them and their shops, and how they deal with their shops, and how they make it work. At the end of the day, it was about the lessons that I learned, and I was happy about it. So after that's how many, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 jobs so far. So after that, the same employer, she got another branch somewhere, but not cosmetic this time, an electronic shop. I had to switch. Basically, we used to sell some electronic stuff and also some chandeliers. Then I had to refocus my mind from now being the beauty lover to just being now the electronic lover. I had to figure out how to, I mean, how to assemble a chandelier, to put it on the display. There are these switches, like the bed switch. It's called bed switch. I had to learn how to really like take the switch and the wire, connect that. I think I've really learned a lot when it comes to electronics. Like sometimes I'd find myself, if like there's a time my iron, like the fuse was not working, and I had to find a way to fix it, and I did. So I learned a lot from that as well. She used to get some stuff from Dubai and China. So at some point, she got me to that place where I could really see how stuff from Dubai work and how things from China work. So what I'll say is, like, now I know a thing or two about getting stuff from China. I know a thing or two about getting stuff from Dubai. That was a really, really good experience to me. The con, I'll say, is like at some point I really got tired. We had to make sure we have sales. So every time we didn't have sale, it was like an argument. So I got to that point where I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not gonna, start being lazy, because I started being lazy at some point and relaxing, and it was not good for our business. So I decided that I should quit before I failed the business, before I felt like my strength in the business went down. After I left that one, I stayed home for like 2 months, almost even without an employment, which was really scary. At this time, I had to figure out a way to find a way to pay my rent. I did laundry for others. Is the mama wanguo, a woman who comes to your house, apartment, whatever, and washes your clothes, and then you pay them a certain amount depending on how many clothes they've washed. So I did that for a while. I had to earn a living. I had to eat. So I had to find a way of something to pay my rent and also eat. Because as I've said in the beginning, I never wanted to go back to my mom's house. So it was this or go back to my mom's house, which I didn't want the shame. I'm that person who tried to avoid being, especially people are always like, you go back, it won't work out for you. So I wanted to prove myself wrong. And I did. So there's this woman, my neighbor, she found somebody in Kahawa, Wendani, a woman who needed that laundry done. So I started doing that for her, and she used to pay me like 1,000 bob, sometimes 700. And then there was this other person used to pay me 500 bob. So between working for them, I really got, for a week, you'd work for one for a week. At least that by the end of the month, I've already gathered that 3,500 and I have something to eat. So I did laundry for some time. And then after that, a friend of mine called, the same friend who called me to work in the first club. She called me where she moved to another club in Kahawa also, Shuge Kawasukari. It's called Kawasukari, or Engine, if you know where Engine is in Kahawa. So I went there, got an interview done. This girl, the friend by then, we do not talk now, not meaning that we didn't have a disagreement. I think it's just the thing or the distance that puts people not to part ways. But we used to hustle with her a lot. I remember us walking from Githurai all the way to TRM to look for jobs with our CVs, giving out CVs everywhere. So I got into the club, the job there, which at first, as always, going into a new work environment, you're always scared. This time, mind you, I was still afraid to tell my mom like the first one, but I figured out a way to tell her because I had to. So I worked there for some months, almost a year. And that was the best experience that I ever got. Working in a club, you have to figure out how to deal with somebody's mood swings and attitude, because somebody will just come and today they're not having it and they're just like I remember there was this client that I used to serve, and he never used to talk to me at all. So he was just like drinking one beer, and the moment he finished, just make sure you have another beer on his table, or else you'll face it. You'll face it and you'll shout, and the entire club will have to know that you did something wrong. So you'll just keep on taking the beer to his table until it's done, so it can tell you. When it's done, he just tells you, bring my bill. So there were people like that, and then there were people who just got drunk and then they don't want to pay their bill, and then now you have to struggle waking them up and letting them. So that was the con of it. But I would say the pro of it was like the experience of having to work with people who really care about your future. So I remember there were customers who like used to tell me like, I hope this is not what you decided to do for a long term. I hope this is something that you're just doing for a short time, and then after this you can go to college, or you can find another employment or something. And also my bosses at that time, that was the first time I ever worked for men. They were tough also. The things that they were teaching about service was really good, and that's how where I got my passion for like working in a hotel. Like that's how I ended up like wanting to do hotelier course, which I did. I also got a chance to work at the bar. Also learned how to do some stockings about that. So yes, I know plenty much about working in a club. I never knew that I was that good when it comes to handling people, because by that time is where I gathered even more confidence. So I really enjoyed working there. Even when I left, there was no disagreement. I left to go to school. Now I'm really, really grateful for that one employment that boosted my confidence, that put me out there to be able to communicate with people, to learn, and also get. That was the first job that I ever got really good tips up. And I remember a gift one of my employers in this club in Kahawa, he gave me a gift of going to eat somewhere in a big hotel, and I was really, really happy. I wouldn't talk much about that, but that was like the best gift I ever got from that job. And then also the my first employer, she got me like this. We are being given like prizes for the best employer in every shop, like employer in every shop, the best hardworking employer, and I got it. And I was gifted a cooking gas, the tiny one. But that was the gift that I got from Darling, Kenya. So that is all I wanted to say. After that, I'm just going to go through some lessons that I've learned, just to let you know, if you're ever getting into these jobs, what to expect. Number one lesson that I learned is respect your employer. It doesn't matter what your employer says to you. You have to know one thing, that job, that shop, whatever, that company belongs to them. So you have to respect them every single day. So they make the decisions, just abide by the rules. Number two, know your place. Know your place in the environment. You have to know that you are the employee, not the employer. Number three is always be flexible to work with others. By this I mean by always be flexible to work with other employees, because one thing about being employed in a company is that you're not there permanent, unless you've written a contract where you're there for 3 years or 5 years. But if it's just you're employed, you're not there permanent. So anytime you might lose your job, you might quit. So anytime you quit, or your boss fires you, there's somebody else who's going to replace you. So if you're into that position where you are used to this employee and they got fired, and now there's a new one who comes and knows everything more than you, don't be that jealous workmate. Just be flexible to work with anybody, no matter their flaws, no matter how they get into your nerve. Be flexible to work with them, understand them, because you have to work together to be able to bring this to be able to lift the company up. Number four, I'll just say, like, listen to your employee. Like, pay attention to what your employee says. Listen to them, like, every single detail they say. When they're talking about how they get the stocks, if you are just that one person who wants to have their company one day, you have to really listen, take some notes. If, like, I would say, like, the thing about China, where she got her stuff and how she knew which stuff to buy. The thing about Dubai, the thing about alcohol, where to be about beer and stuff, about spirits and stuff. Every employment I ever got, I got something from it. And that is really, really important about being employed. You don't just go there for the money. You go there also to gain knowledge and to know things that you never knew. So when you out and when one day you're considering having your own business, you can take what you learned and bring it to your own business for your business to prosper. Talking too much. Ask questions. Be open to ask questions to things you do not know, or things that are if there's stock that is brought into the shop, you've never seen it before. Don't be that person who just sells for the sake of selling because the stuff is in the shop or is in your company. Go ask questions if you're curious. Ask, why is this stuff, how is it made? If she knows, she has idea, she will tell you, or he or she will tell you. Your employer, I mean. Ask questions about the things in the company that you've never seen before and you're wondering where they got them from. Go ask questions, get to know. So this also helps you in the future. So be that person who's talkative, who's confident. Another thing I'll say is like speak up. Speak up in the times where you feel like you're being, I would say, like what you're getting is not enough. Let's say when it even comes to salary or you're being mistreated in your work environment, be able, please speak up. Don't be that person who puts everything in and one day you just decide to quit out of nowhere, losing your job when it was not really your fault. So speak up and speak your mind. What I'll say, know when it's time to move on. Some of us, what I read this in a book somewhere where I can't remember the title of the book, but you get paid. A salary will blind you. As much as you think you're getting paid, maybe it's 50,000, maybe you get paid 100K, maybe you get, like me, the most I ever got was like 10, 12K. And you, at that particular moment, you think that salary is so much that you don't need any other employment, you don't need to look for any other job, or you don't need to expand your territory. You know what I mean? You have to be improving. But if you have been working somewhere for like 5, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, and so far there's no improvement that you see within yourself, I think for me, the advice I'll give to you is like, just move on, find something else and move on. It's like, save as much as you can. I mean, the moment you get employed, that moment, the first salary you get, please save. Please save. The reason why I'm telling you is like, there's sometimes I didn't used to save and I'll find myself quitting a job with nothing else. So paying rent was an issue. That's why I ended up washing people's laundry because I didn't have any other money. So I needed money. So please save as much as you can. As I've said, this is not your company and you do not know what happens tomorrow. There's that book I read. I need to find the title of that book and write it down here. I mean, the book says, like, your boss, you don't know what goes through their minds. So one day they wake up, there's somebody else who comes in for an interview, and this other person has more knowledge, more experience than you, and they can take a company far higher than you do. So what do you think your boss is gonna do? Not accept them because you have been there for 5 years, 6 years? No. Your boss is always looking for something that will make their company earn more profit, lift their company higher. So if you think that you are there to stay, trust me, you need to find a way out. By this I mean also you always have to have money. So anytime your boss would be like, so this is why I'm saying, oh god. So this is why I'm saying, save as much as you can, because today you're in that job, tomorrow you don't know. Your boss might walk in and say that, Elizabeth Acheng, you're not, I'm sorry, but I no longer need your services. So I'm giving you, like, by end month, you're fired or something. Be confident. Everywhere you step in, every employment, like if you're looking for jobs right now, walk into that place confident. You're not always gonna get positive answers. Some will just take your CV, throw it in the bin when you're not looking, which I guess has been done to me so many times. Everywhere I've taken my CV. But just be confident, smile, and be humble through the whole process, through all points that I've said. through every employment. Just be humble. Know your place, like I've said. Know that is not your company, you're an employee. At the same time, treat it as your own. Treat the work environment, treat the company as your own. If you're given a certain task, do it, and do it on time, do it full-heartedly. You know, some people work because of the salary, as what I always say, which is that's the main thing, the reason why you look for jobs. But take it this way: when you're working in that company at that time, have it as your own also. Find a way to feel the pain when the company goes down, and when the company goes up, always be happy. Be that person who wants to take the company to a higher notch. Overall, be humble, because you never know what happens tomorrow. So about that, another thing I'll add is about customers. Like what I'll say about, and like I've said, the number one major rule about customer is a customer is always right. Number two about your customer, say know the relationship between you and the customer. You should know that it's an employee to a customer relationship. There's no other relationship that should be going on in there, unless your relative is the one who's the customer. I don't believe there should be any relationship going in there, because at this time you'll find yourself gossiping about your employer and saying stuff that are mean and rude about your company, which you never know. Your customer will be the one turning things around, and you get sacked because of your running mouth. So you should know you should know the relationship between you and the client. You should know that it's work related, it's business related. Anything after that shouldn't be there. I'll say is like, serve every customer that walks into your company, your shop, with respect, and always listen to them, and always put on a smile while serving a customer. So because this is the person who's bringing in the profit, who's bringing in the sales, so you have to respect them, serve them, with respect. And it doesn't matter if it's that customer who comes and makes you take all of the stuff out of the shelf and then leaves without buying anything. Just be respectful. And lastly, what I'll say is just always speak highly of your boss to your customers. If they ask you about your boss, speak highly of them. Speak highly of employers. As long as you're there, you have to know that is their own companies. And also to let your customer know that you respect the company, you respect your boss. So lastly, what I'll say after all this, it doesn't matter what we are doing now. You might be doing laundry, you might be working in a company where you're being paid a lot of money, you might be working somewhere where your salary is only 10,000. Just do it with all your heart, and when God sees you do that thing full-heartedly, He'll surely open the door for you somewhere else. And when God sees you treating that company as your own, He'll make you one day have your own company. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned a thing or two. Also share with me your experience on the comment section down below. So thank you so much. Till next time. See you, and have a lovely day.